Just want to makes you want to run out the door or not.
No problem. No problem.
We'll call the meeting to order. Those that would like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, please do.
Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This begins our March 15th, 2016 meeting of the Wycomico County Council. Call the meeting to order. Entertain a motion to approve the legislative minutes from March 1st, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Corrections? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Minutes are approved. Entertain a motion to approve the work session minutes from March 1st in reference to tier maps and land use.
So moved.
Second. Any corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Minutes are approved. Entertain a motion to approve the open work session minutes from March 1st in reference to poultry houses.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Minutes have been approved.
Mr. President, may I
Kramer?
have a word?
Yes, sir.
There's a small change in the agenda this morning. The proclamation listed as coming next will be presented by Mr. Davis at Ms. Hearn's birthday. So the council will pass the resolution today, and it will actually be presented at another time.
I was hoping to see her.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer.
Move to approve the proclamation.
Entertain a motion, please, if I could, to approve the proclamation for Lillian Hester Hearn's 100th birthday.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
May I continue?
Proclamation's been approved. Thank you very much, Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. President, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen. The first item for your consideration is Resolution Number 40, 2016, at the request of the County Executive, approving an agreement between Wycomico County and the town of Willards for the enforcement of fire prevention within the corporate limits of the town, and authorizing the County Executive to execute the agreement.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 40-2016.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor of Resolution 40-2016, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes.
Next is Resolution Number 41, 2016, at the request of the County Executive, authorizing the Executive to accept a grant award from the Bureau of Justice Assistance under the fiscal year 2015 Bulletproof Vest Partnership in the amount of $5,031.30.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 41-2016.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. I understand Captain Richardson, you're here today. Morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very good. Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
Entertain any questions that you might have, but basically this is a reimbursement grant. We have to pay the full amount for any grant or any vests that need to be replaced during that fiscal year. Once we have paid for the vest and received them, and then we submit to the granting authority, they reimburse us 50% of that money. The money's then I'm asking to go back into the account where they were taken. In a perfect world, we would have 18 vests replaced every single year, because that would be on a 5-year rotation. Unfortunately, that's not how they've been brought in, unless we shorten some years or lengthen some, which we would never lengthen past the lifetime of a vest, it throws off the numbers as far as how much we need each year. That's, we're getting that 50% back into our budget basically.
Any questions?
Those vests
Councilman Hall?
have an expiration date.
Yes, sir.
How long do they typically last?
5 years.
They, because I know you said 5 years, but I didn't know if that was
Yes,
the
and that's
length.
under normal wear and tear. If one were to get wet, stay wet, proper maintenance is the 5 year. Sometimes they need to be replaced shorter term,
Sooner.
just due to wear and tear.
Okay.
Councilman Hall?
Do you recycle them?
Yes, there's one company that we found that will actually come and get them. We save them. You have to have a certain poundage before they will come and get them. They recycle the material. It actually pays for the recycled material and it goes back into making
question.
other resistant items.
This is an anticipated grant then, that you're almost guaranteed approval on this grant?
Actually, we've included it in next year's budget because there is going to be a state side and a federal side. So I know that budget is not before you yet, but we've included that in it next year so that it will be automatic that we'll be able to buy the grant or that portion of the vest out of that fund. And we won't have to come in front of you. It's already budgeted.
Any other questions?
Do these include vests for the canines?
No, actually, we've been very lucky that we haven't had to purchase any canine vests. They've all been donated by
Good.
different organizations, mainly the Humane Society and the Kennel Club of Salisbury.
Very good.
When they hear we have a new dog, they're calling us almost immediately, wanting to purchase the vest. So it's a bonus for us. I guess.
Right. Good news.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 41, 2016, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Next is Resolution Number 42, 2016, at the request of the county executive to make an appropriation of funds to the sheriff's office from unanticipated revenue in the amount of $49,935.11.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 42-2016.
Second?
Discussion.
This amount comes from various different amounts that we received through unanticipated revenue. The first one was a check from the Maryland State Police Marijuana Eradication Fund. They used our SWAT team to serve warrants on 2 different marijuana grows, one being in Somerset County, one being here in Wycomico County. The one in Wycomico County was quite a substantial grow inside an older farmhouse. But because it was through the eradication program, they offered to pay all our overtime costs that were associated with serving these warrants. That was the first amount of $34,608.07. Sex offender grant is something that we're having a hard time anticipating, so that's why we haven't placed it in the budget. This year it did come through. Normally we apply for it in July. It's a grant where we're actually paid by the state to register offenders. It's based on the number of offenders we have on July 1. Obviously, that can dramatically change throughout the year. People coming off the registry, people going back on. This year, the check didn't come until October because it took a while to decide whether or not we're going to get paid. This all started out with the mandate. The Maryland Sheriff's Association went to the governor's office and said, "You're giving us another unfunded mandate. You need to take care of this." These monies were hopefully going to be to expand our program. Unfortunately, in the last, just prior to me putting this resolution forward, our fingerprint machine that is exclusively used for fingerprinting sex offenders has last leg. The first one we had was given to us by the state many years ago. Actually, it belonged to them. It became our property later. We became responsible for maintaining it. That was how we used some of the monies, and then it's an old piece of equipment. It does need replacing. Unfortunately, that piece of equipment is about $20,000. So the bulk of this grant this year is just going to get us losing the car, we actually bought the car back from the insurance company. We saved the motor, the transmission, the air conditioner, every light housing, 2 doors, I believe a hood and a trunk lid, and have since used them to help maintain other vehicles. I don't like losing a car to an accident, but I think we actually came out better off by purchasing back from the insurance company. The additional money was that legit paid us for it was a newer light bar that was on the car that was destroyed. I'd like to take those funds and drop it into our vehicle maintenance in order to paint some of the vehicles that are due to be out of the fleet, but unfortunately this year probably will not leave the fleet, and they're doing fairly poorly to be driving around our county roads. I included some of the pictures packets that we got those. Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Next funds that came in were from the Department of Treasury. This was a 2012 case where we seized just over $21,000. We brought the Treasury Department in on the investigation because it was an intense investigation. These suspects were going up and down the East Coast with card readers. They're placing them in the front of an ATM. You could actually read your card and read your PIN, and then they would release them very quickly after they saw enough cards go through, and they would immediately go and empty those bank accounts. We caught them red-handed and were able to catch them with cash and the card readers because it was a crime that was occurring up and down the East Coast. The Treasury Department took over the entire investigation, which also meant seizing the $21,000 that we seized. We put DAG in on that, and 4 years later, very quickly, we were awarded $11,000 of the $21,000 that was seized back to the agency. And that money we would like to use to update the holsters in our agency so that they now accommodate weapons lights. We found out through a shooting that weapons light was a big part of saving an officer's life. We want to completely re-equip the agency. Of course, it takes a bit of time to do that because of training. We'll train a percentage and update them to the new holster. We'll start with the road patrol first and then completely revamp our entire agency. It's adding a security device to the holster as well as adding a light to the weapon. You have the ability to use a light or not use a light when the weapon's drawn. And we like to be able to use those funds from the Treasury Department to help upgrade that. And I believe that's it on those funds. Those funds equal $49,935.11.
Thank you, Captain. Any questions? Seeing none. Yes.
I have a question.
John.
As unanticipated revenue, if you hadn't received this, this amount would have gone into next year's budget?
Yes, either next year's budget or I would have come before you this year to ask for some money out of contingency to start the training program. First, we had to develop the training program, get it approved by the Maryland Police Training Commission. We're ready to do that. Now we're ready to start purchasing the holsters, lights, and begin the training. So some of the monies are in next year's budget, but this would be enough to get the first phase of training and purchases up and running.
So we reduce next year's budget by that amount?
I don't know that we would reduce it. We would relocate it in order for the priorities.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 42, 2016, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes. Thank you, Captain.
All right, thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Morning, Mr. Roser.
Good morning, Mr. President, council members. I'll call your attention to Resolution 43, 2016.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 43, 2016.
So move.
Second. Discussion. Mr. Roser.
The Office of the Internal Auditor performed an analysis of the inmate labor program. The county employs inmates from the detention center and Poplar Hill pre-release center. Inmates work with roads and solid waste divisions road litter crews, roadside maintenance, and the recycling center. They also work with general services and the civic center, among others. Inmates get sentence reductions for their service as codified in Maryland law, and they are not otherwise paid for their services. Estimated payroll savings for the county is around $1.2 million annually. The objectives of the consultation were to gain an understanding of the process and evaluate controls. The scope of the project was FY 2016 to date, and we found that controls in place appear to be adequate for their stated purposes, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Questions from council?
And I just want to comment that that's a significant amount of savings to the county using their labor, so thank you.
Mr. Roser, you stated in here, I believe, that county saved $1 million, approximately $1 million by using this labor.
1.2.
Yes.
Are there, and of course,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
That's an estimate based on the assumptions given, minimum wage and full-time equivalencies and so on.
Do the detention center and Poplar Hill pre-release think that we're utilizing these resources the best that we can?
I interviewed the management at Poplar Hill along with our management at DOC, and they are very enthusiastic about the program. They think it is working well. The problem, I think, the biggest problem we have in the county is that they would like to be able to use more of this, and it's from time to time not available. As far as the other end, Poplar Hill and DOC, they're very committed to the program. It's well run. They do all the training, and everybody I interviewed was very enthusiastic about it.
From what I understand, the Civic Center uses this labor to tear up and set up exhibits, and they're thrilled with the resources that they have that are coming out of these places. And a lot of these people know what they're doing. They've been coming year after year after year to help with the Civic Center for this very time-constricted setup and tear downs.
Yes, sir. And additionally, the program will use skills possessed by various individuals involved. For example, electricians, plumbers, barbers. And so they will take advantage of certain individuals who do possess skills. And it helps them, especially the pre-release personnel, when they try to get back out into the job market, they can show some experience. As a matter of fact, I believe Roads Division is offered positions to 2 mechanics as a result of this program. So it's working.
Any other questions, council? Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 43, 2016, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Roser. Mrs. Harris?
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have for introduction Legislative Bill 2016-04, an act to amend the Wycomico County Code, Chapter 186, titled Right to Farm, Article 2, titled Wycomico County Agriculture Reconciliation Committee, Section 186-5, titled Establishment, Membership, Terms of Office, Meetings, to remove the residency requirement for appointments to the Wycomico County Agricultural Reconciliation Committee. Mr. Wayne Strasburg, Director of Administration, is here to discuss the bill.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Entertain a motion to introduce Legislative Bill 2016-04.
So moved.
Second. Second. Any discussion?
I just had a question I asked Wayne earlier, and maybe he could explain. So I think some of the other council members are wondering about why are we changing the residency requirement, and is it a good idea of setting a precedent?
Well, I can understand your apprehension. I guess one of the reasons was this person happens to work at the county extension agency, and they were a resident of Wycomico County and now have moved to Worcester County. And they're a very important part of the Wycomico County Extension Service that would be very helpful on this committee. I don't know any other way of doing it other than, trying to say basically we'd have to change it, but each case would be individually, looked at. I understand it, and I agree with it, what you're all, we've been faced with for years.
Would it be better to consider an amendment for someone from the extension agency instead of changing residency requirements?
Well, I mean, to interrupt here, I mean, as council members, we reserve the right to reject anybody for any reason to this. I mean, so if we would change this to remove the residency requirement, and then if there was a consensus on the council that we still wanted someone to be from Wycomico County, we don't have to approve whoever the executive sends us. I mean, so we can still have,
That's correct.
an informal policy on the council without having it written into law. This would provide, I think, more flexibility when there are certain cases to do that. So, I mean, I'm in favor of it, but that doesn't mean that we necessarily have to approve someone who lives in Worcester County. We reserve the right to reject that person if we want.
Our intent is to seek the best qualified, highest quality people who we can find. In this particular instance, this is a very qualified person who works in Wycomico County, but who resides in Worcester County. So we think it's in the county's best interest to seek out the best qualified people we can find. But as you say, Mark, you still have the flexibility of rejecting those people for whatever reason you so choose.
Any other questions, comments? Use your mic, Jim.
You don't think out of the 100,000 people in Wycomico County, we can find another qualified person to fill this seat?
Joe,
Somebody
may
interested?
very well, but the question is this person is qualified now,
Yeah.
and this committee needs to get up and running.
Well, it's been up and running since
It's been pretty much-
1997.
It's
Yeah.
been pretty much defunct for the last
Well,
7 years.
it's not had anybody
Yeah.
called on it. I mean, it's came about when somebody needed it, and that's what it was set up for. I think it's setting a dangerous precedent to start appointing people that's not citizens of Wycomico County. Now, I know in this case with the airport, we do that, but the airport bought in, Worcester County bought in, and is part of, it's called the Ocean City Wycomico County Airport. But, we could advertise. Has there been any feelers put out to see if anybody else would want to be a member of this committee that lives in Wycomico County?
It actually came as a shock that this person had moved to Worcester County, so.
Well, I know a few years ago, we had a member of the Planning and Zoning that moved to Worcester County. He was very qualified, but he was requested to step down because he did live in Worcester County. I think we need to stay with the citizens of Maryland making the decisions for a citizen of Maryland making decisions for the citizens of Maryland. And also,
Worcester County's still in Maryland.
not citizens of Wycomico, excuse me. And also, this committee is set up kind of as a committee that people go to before they go to court. So you've got two parties most of the time against each other. They're going to make a decision, and I think one of the arguments from the people are going to say, well, this wasn't even done by a citizen of Wycomico County. So I can't support this.
I understand your point.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I agree with Mark. I think that we have the ability to restrict or not approve people who live outside the county. And I'd like to see the best qualified people that we can possibly have, which might not necessarily be county residents. So I'm supporting this.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of introducing legislative bill 2016-04, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Nay.
Two opposed. The introduction of legislative bill 2016-04 passes.
Thank you.
Harris, public hearing date?
Yes, notice is hereby given in compliance with Chapter 22 of the Wycomico County Code and the Local Government Article, Section 10-312 of the Annotated Code of Maryland, that the County Council of Wycomico County, Maryland will hear public comments on the following proposed resolution at their regular meeting in the County Council Chambers, Government Office Building in Salisbury, Maryland, on Tuesday, March 15th, 2016, commencing at 10:30 a.m. The County Council proposes to consider the following request for the relocation of a forest conservation easement. Kay Kirk and Tammy R. Kinnaman. The existing easement portion to be removed contains approximately .24 acres and is located on the southerly side of Spearn Road and described as Tax Map 59, Parcel 182, as shown on a plat entitled Corrected Plat and Forest Relocation Plat of the re-subdivision of Lot 2 and 3 for William C. Anderson and Kay Kirk and Tammy R. Kinnaman, dated August 4th, 2015. The proposed relocation has been reviewed and approval is recommended by the staff of the Department of Planning, Zoning, and Community Development. A plat of the easement area to be released and the relocated area is available for review at the Department of Planning, Zoning, and Community Development. The Wycomico County Council requests that all interested persons appear at said time and place for the purpose of expressing their views and opinions concerning the matter. It is technically 3 minutes before 10:30, but.
Correct. I didn't make myself clear. I apologize, Ms. Harris. I was asking for the prior legislative bill, 2016-04, if we could establish a public hearing date.
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay.
I just read a lot for nothing.
April 5th.
April 5th, then will be the date.
Okay.
Council's benefit. And Mrs. Harris is correct. We have 2.5 minutes.
As long as you don't conclude the public hearing before 10:30, I think you will still be meeting the requirement of holding the public hearing at 10:30.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. You have 2 more minutes to.
Do I need to reread that at
express your
10:30?
position.
It might be germane to ask whether the relocation of this forest conservation easement is being done on a one-for-one basis, or is it for a different on a different basis? And I think Mr. Planning and Zoning, perhaps Mr. McKenzie can address that.
All right. We'll get into discussion in 2 minutes, if you don't mind, Mr. McKenzie. Will
I'll hang out here and watch TV for a while.
hold.
Go ahead.
Frank McKenzie,
Hang on one second, Frank, if you don't mind. I do want to hold until 10:30.
Oh, did he?
Thank you.
Oh, didn't hear that.
I do have some handouts.
Great, thank you.
You can do that.
Need help with the map that you have?
I don't think so. Should be okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Reassign a seat here.
great. Okay, if you may continue, thank you. Thank you for waiting.
Well, thanks for having me today. Frank McKenzie, the Wycomico County Planning Office. And I'm here today to discuss a relocation of a forest conservation easement of a piece of property owned on Spearn Road by Mr. Kenneman. Back in 2005, Mr. Kenneman established a forest conservation mitigation plan. It essentially took about 106 acres and put this into an easement that'll be held in forest cover in perpetuity. On the piece of property, there were a couple areas that were not encumbered by this easement. I believe that he had the opportunity for a couple home sites on this piece of property. Now it's been discovered that in order to put a dwelling on part of this site, they need to establish a sewage reserve area. They need about 10,000 square feet. The only place it would perk is an area that's shown as covered by easement. So essentially, they're asking to relocate 10,000 square feet of forest from one area of the site to another area of the site. And they will be mitigating at a one-to-one basis. There's a policy of the executive and the council that on-site relocations can occur at a one-to-one basis. If you relocate an easement and go off-site, it's a 2-to-1 basis. Now you can see on the map that I handed out, the site is pretty much fully forested. The area he's going to be swapping is forest area for forest area.
Any questions from council?
So that'd be the only home built on that plot, correct?
I can't confirm that. If he can get, he may have to create a new subdivision in order to get another one. He's left room to have that occur, but I can't say that he cannot further subdivide a piece of property.
Mr. McKenzie, I think at this time, while you're here, we'll begin the public hearing, okay, so that in case there are any questions from members of the community. At this time, we open the floor to a public hearing. For anybody that has any questions or comments, please go to the podium and state your name and address and what your concerns might be. Okay, seeing none.
Mr. President, you might want to introduce the resolution as well. It hasn't been
Okay,
done
Mr.
yet.
Kramer, thank you. Seeing none, that concludes the public hearing on Resolution 44, 2016. This time, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept Resolution 44, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Continue the discussion, if we could. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 44, 2016, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, resolution passes. Thank you, Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you very much.
This time, the council opens the floor for any public comments. If you do have public comments, please go to the podium, state your name and address and your concerns. Keep in mind, we do have a 3-minute timeline on all public comments.
My name is Mary Ashanti, and I'm president of Wycomico County NAACP, and I'm a resident of Wycomico County. Address: Post Office Box 1047, Salisbury, Maryland 21802. First, giving honor to God and thanking Him for the opportunity to be before you today, to President Cannon and members of the County Council, County Exec Mr. Culver, and all those assembled. Good morning. Our concern is on the concentrated animal feeding operations called CAFOs. According to an article written on March the 11th by Jeremy Cox, CAFOs are being built in various parts of Wycomico County. Mr. Cox indicated that CAFO's application will be reviewed under existing regulations which are said to be the least restrictive on the Eastern Shore. Under these circumstances, we are calling for two things. One is put a moratorium on the construction of any new CAFOs, and two, make current ordinance stricter for the protection of the health of the county's citizens. In addition to that, we ask that you ask the local health department to request that the Maryland State epidemiologist do an investigation to address the environmental concerns and habits that have been expressed on many occasions by the citizens of Wycomico County. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, President Shawnee.
Good morning. I'm Bill Satterfield, a citizen and taxpayer in Wycomico County, 3922 Colburn Mill Road, Salisbury. I'm also executive director of the Chicken Industry Trade Association, Delmarva Poultry Industry Incorporated. We want to thank Executive Culver for scheduling the meeting next week so facts can be presented to you and to the citizens about what impact there might be from family-owned chicken farms being constructed in the county. And we thank you, members of council, who have been out and looked at some new facilities to get a better understanding of what is involved, so you better understand how long 400 feet is or 1,000 feet. I know that was some of the discussion that Mr. Lennox led at the work session 2 weeks ago. So we appreciate your taking the effort to become a little bit more informed about what might or might not occur. Just want to make sure you understand, and you probably do, that when chicken houses are proposed in Wycomico County, the landowner simply does not go up and slap up a building and put birds in. There are a number of government agencies involved and permits required. Some of the lenders who are involved early in the process with the property owner are requiring that there be environmental buffers, vegetative environmental buffers on the property. During the planning process, the landowner needs to approach the Maryland Department of the Environment for at least two things. One is the general permit for stormwater management to make sure that rainwater, clean rainwater, is properly moved on the property and does not move pollutants to waters of the state. The second is the sediment and erosion control permit to make sure that during construction, there is no movement of erosion or sediment to waters of the state. There also is the requirement that the property owner work with MDE if he needs a certain amount of water to make sure the operation has sufficient water for the birds. And then there's the CAFO permit itself, Concentrated Animal Feeding Operation Permit. And the question came up at the last work session about, well, when does the grower need to do that? The Maryland Department of the Environment is suggesting that that be started almost immediately, at least 3 months before construction is finished. That permit is what allows the birds to be placed in the house. So there are things in place to make sure there are environmental protections. And you keep hearing the phrase CAFO. Under the federal definition of CAFO, a house with a that can hold 37,500 birds can be considered a CAFO. So it's not just big farms, 8, 10 houses. It can be a 1-house farm or a 2-house farm that has to go through all this. So I think it's important that you understand that. And the farmer has to get a comprehensive nutrient management plan or a regular nutrient management plan and a soil conservation plan. That's part of the CAFO. It's something that he has to adhere to. It's part of the permit he gets, the general discharge permit from the Maryland Department of the Environment. And in that, there are 9 minimum standards for water quality protection that plan has to meet and has to be in effect during the farm's life. And they are applicable here in Wicomico County as well. So we thank you for setting up the meeting. We thank you for your interest and for working this based on facts and not just emotions. And as I watched the public comments 2 weeks ago, there seem to be a lot of people not fully aware of what is required and what the standards are. And we hope the meeting on March 22nd will help clear up some of those misconceptions and misinformation. I thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
My name is Charles Denton. I live in Whitehaven along the Wicomico River. Mr. President, council members, Mark and Bob, they're neighbors of mine. I appreciate the opportunity to share a couple of ideas and thoughts with you. I have a pretty good handout that I think will be informative. It was for me. I took a zoning map, and I have a copy of this for each one of you. And I took the Maryland Department of the Environment listing of all the poultry houses in the county, the notice of intent for both the operating ones as well as the ones proposed, and I plotted them on the zoning map. Because in a lot of the discussions, I don't have someone to lay that down, but I have a copy for you gentlemen to look at. Pass those down.
Thank you very much.
I also coded the symbols on the map so that there's the large ones, greater than 200,000 animals, and the smaller ones, as well as the ones that are operating and the ones that are proposed. And I've gathered this data off the Maryland Department of Energy, Environment's official notice of intent webpage that any citizen can access. But let me back up. I'm not a spokesman for any organization. I'm just a tax-paying concerned citizen. My wife and I moved to Wicomico County about 6 years ago. And as retirees, we were greatly attracted to this community because of the small town values. We like living in the country. We raise some animals, have a small flock of laying hens ourselves. So we love this area. We met great neighbors like Bob and the other people in Whitehaven, so we're really enamored with the area. I was motivated to do this because I've heard a lot of the conversations in the last couple of meetings, but I thought this shed more light. If you look at those maps, you should be able to sort of come away with the same thing I did. The distribution of these CAFOs across the county is quite varied. And over in eastern area where there's large open expanses, it looks different than it does if you go over to Athol Road where there's just buildings all around one neighborhood. The bottom line is there's areas of the county people like me would like to live, and there's areas where you wouldn't like to live. But I'd like to point out 2 stars. If you go up on the West Road site, you'll notice how close that one is to the city property proper. And then there's another star that represents the proposed CAFO along Rockawalken. Those 2 proposed locations are very close in, and they're nothing like the ones that are distributed wide out in the county. I bring that to your attention. I have 3, I'm going to summarize quickly, I have 3 recommendations based upon the information that I gathered for your consideration. I would say no significant operations are located in the Paleo Channel now, and therefore no new operations should be located in this area. Second, no new operations should be allowed in residential or transformational areas. It's just going to create problems. There's very few on the perimeter of the city and into these development areas, and there shouldn't be any more added there. And no new operations should be allowed in the Chesapeake Bay critical area. It just seems foolish to put things in places that flood, like my property in Whitehaven, and then have to worry with the issues associated with that. I thank you for the chance to speak to you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments? Are there any other public comments? All right, seeing none, that concludes the public comments. Moving on, council comments.
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody for attending this day meeting. Decent looking turnout. I too took a tour of several of the chicken houses that are built, and I was pretty impressed about how clean they were. The smell really wasn't that bad, and it was very informative. The tour was with some Mount Aaron, Purdue people and some others, and it took all morning. And what I did notice was there are a lot of vacant chicken houses out there, so we need to take that into consideration as well. And in light of what's been going on, another police officer has been killed, so I see we've got our deputies back here. I'd like them to be really cognizant of their surroundings, and I pray for your safety and thank you for what you guys do.
Any other council comments? Please. Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion from the council to adjourn so that we can go into an open work session followed by a closed work session.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Meeting has been adjourned. We will have a 5-minute recess prior to moving into our first open work session. Thank you.
We have